Friday, everybody. As you can see, John is still traveling, so you get to deal with me again. Today, we are honored to have our friend George Politis from Greece with us. And welcome, George.
Hi, how are you?
We're so glad you could be here with us. Thank you for
Th-
making time.
Thank you, thank you.
So
Uh,
we're going to go ahead and start with a slideshow per usual. And so let's go ahead and roll that. And George, if you could just walk us through uh, some of the artworks on here like you usually do. So here's George,
just a moment.
and this is your Instagram, correct? So
Yes,
go
this
go
is,
follow George on Instagram and Facebook.
yep.
Beautiful. Man, you do metal and rust like nobody's business.
Uh, well, I like metal and rust and old things, wood, whatever it is. Yeah.
So can you tell us a little bit about this beautiful painting in front of us?
This is something like the idea that I'm going to present tonight. It is a collage with watercolor. So if I had this painting here, you could feel the 3D kind of paper created by the collage, and then on top of that, I paint with watercolor. And it creates unique, beautiful results because you take advantage of the texture. Sometimes a little bit unpredicted, but this is the joy and beauty out of that. Okay, this is another one, more, let's say, geometric rendition of some machinery that I found, and a lot of invented and changed shapes and colors because this is what I like to have something as reference, and then create my own thing because I try to balance my composition and create something that is visually interesting to me. Not sure if it is interesting to you, but that's another question.
It's beautiful.
Okay, this is one of the paintings that were exhibited even in USA last year, but it is one of the paintings that I like a lot. Again, some uh, it it is part of an old vehicle carriage that I found in Portugal when I was there, and then again a lot of invented shapes. Once again. Like the ones, the shapes that you find at the back, or the curves and so on. So many shapes are invented because you want to create some balance out of that. But it is again wood and metal and simple things like that, creating to me something that is really interesting. Okay, this is Santorini at night. This was created in my studio, and one of the few cases that I use masking fluid. So in this one, I used masking fluid to preserve the whites, the lights in the distant hills and so on. I prefer to paint without masking fluid and paint around the shapes, but I think that in this case it would be practically impossible to do without masking fluid. Of course, I could have used white gauze and do the same thing in another way. I'm not afraid to go in any direction in my painting. I'm not purist in my watercolors. Of course, I prefer pure watercolors, but I don't hesitate to use acrylics or gauze or collage, as you see in this case, because I love experimenting. And this is about my coming workshop, because Sandorin is the place that we hold an annual workshop every August, And I believe that some of the people who were in Santorini are together, are tonight with us here. And we have fabulous time there. And so this year it's gonna be again in, yeah, hi Carol. I barely see them, the comments because my second phone is a little bit far away and my sight is not the best. But Carol was with us and we had fabulous time there. And this is my plans for the next year. So I'm starting my personal mentorship schedule, monthly Zoom meetings. We have the Zoom workshop in December, like a Christmas edition, but not Christmas subjects. And then the workshop in Santorini during August, in August. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for showing all that.
I think all of us would like to come to that.
Yeah.
Just one big party.
It's truly amazing.
Santorini is, it's amazing. You have to feel, to see, to understand. I didn't want to go to Santorini. Let's say 15 years ago. Once I went there because I thought it was a purely touristic place. Once I went there, I fell in love with it. So now it's a must visit place every year. All right. So that's it.
All right. So we're excited to see you're doing collage today.
So the idea is to create collage, and I will do some demo of how I do the collage, and then as it will take some time to dry, I will turn to another one that is already collaged and dry, and I will paint on top of that. So another thing is that I have a step-by-step, as previously, file. If you send me an email, I will be happy to send you the PDF file, and you can find the email in my website, but I will also share with Daniel Smith, so everything will be given to you one way or another. And I will be glad to receive your, attempts, your photos, your works, and send you back comments on what I do. So first of all, I start with a sketch. You see the sketch here. And then I start collaging using various pieces of paper, like simple kitchen paper, because this is what we all have at home, and it is inexpensive, and it is a very good idea because the real paper, the real, I mean, the best papers from Japan or China are way more expensive. They have fibers, and they are much better to use, but they are more expensive as well. Look at that. These beautiful fibers. So I use these kinds of paper in several of my watercolors, but then why not take a piece of kitchen paper, separate the two pieces like that, and then we have a lot of tissue paper to use with collage, and you can create beautiful fibers, it's not fibers, but like fibers, using these pieces of paper. And I also use newspaper. This is an American newspaper some years ago. So I have loads of paper like that. In this demo, I will use only 6 colors, and these are going to be quinacridone gold, quinacridone burnt orange, moonglow, cerulean blue, phthalo blue, red shade, and green apatite. And for brushes, well, this is relatively small, so I will not use my most loved a Skoda Ultimo, but if you don't have it, this is a brush that I suggest that you buy because it comes when it is wet with a fantastic tip and it holds loads of water and color. But today I will use these brushes, some Skoda Versatile Barocco and my most loved Perla for details. And I will use a very inexpensive brush for my collage. So let's start with the collage. I'm removing the colors. Two colors I might use, but I will not use for this watercolor, but I love them as well. Piemontite Genuine and Bloodstone. All right, so now I will prepare several pieces of paper around me, several shapes, like that, and maybe this one with these beautiful fibers, but I will mostly use the most inexpensive thing because it is good for you to know how to work with it and create beautiful results. So let's start. I use acrylic medium, simple acrylic medium, nothing else. Okay. I have 3 jars of water around me, a lot of tissue paper around me, so that I can use whatever is, required at any moment. So I'll take some of the acrylic medium and start applying on the paper. And then let's take a piece of newspaper, put it here, press from inwards outwards. So this way you cannot mess with the edges. But when I do that, as the letters are evident, I'm trying to create something on top of that. So I'm collaging some kitchen paper on top of that. And you see now I'm pressing from both sides. And this way I'm creating a, let's say, fiber. Can you see that I have created something like the fibers in the more expensive Oriental papers? And that is what I like about the tissue paper. It is so versatile. You can do whatever you want. They can create fibers in all directions, not real fibers, but so I create texture like that. Let's take some of the Oriental paper and create something else here. Most of the time, I prefer to work rock by rock if it's gonna be rocks, because this way I can, focus in every rock individually. So let's focus on, let's say, that rock over there. I will add some collage here as well. But I will tell you that I don't cover all of my area with collage. You see, I press from both sides. I'm creating something like a fiber once again. I can manipulate this fiber, creating curves and so on. And these are really so useful in creating textures later. Let's go down here, do something similar here. And now the question is, will the watercolor adhere well on top of the acrylic medium? Because acrylic medium will create a plastic film. And the answer is yes. If you don't overdo it, if you don't create a very thick layer of collage and acrylic medium, the watercolor works fantastically. It's amazing what results you can achieve like that. And maybe I don't have to continue with all that because I think you got the idea of how I work with this collage. And I can proceed with the painting in another piece of paper. I don't know if you can see it, but I'm trying to create some shadows, and you can see that this is a three-dimensional thing like that. Is it possible to see? Because I don't see what you see. Can you see the shadows here?
We can see that, George, yes.
Yeah.
There's shadows on it.
So all that creates beautiful effects, and watercolor will go to the top of these hills, and then the valleys will be left without color, and you can create all sorts of textures, especially when you paint dry brush like that. Okay, so I'll put this away, and I will bring the one that I have already collaged, and you can see once again all of these effects, the three-dimensional effects. I have created collage in the foreground rock, the mid rock, not the distant mountains, not the more distant rock, not the sky, because watercolor is more than enough for these areas. You don't need texture all over the place. You need texture in the closer areas.
George, how long does it usually take for the acrylic medium and the collage to dry before you paint on it?
I'd say hours, just to be sure that it's gonna be dry. You can make it a little bit faster by using the hair dryer, but you know, I prefer to let it dry on its own. Then I prepare it, let's say in the morning, I forget about it, go in the evening to paint on top of that, something like that. Okay? I just let it dry on its own.
Awesome.
All right, so let's start with it. And what you will have in the direction is that I normally start with the sky, and I will extend the sky colors to the distant mountains and you know, the more distant rocks, just to create something like a background here, nothing else. And what I do in the sky is not really that important, because you may have heard me several times saying that the sky is never a star, or almost never a star in my paintings. So it's mostly used. These colors I have in my palette, but I'm putting the colors fresh now, just so that you see how little color I will be using for all that. Even that is a lot of color. So let's start by wetting the surface. Let me get rid of the pieces of paper. Let's get some water closer to me. And then I was saying that what is important for me in the sky is to give a direction that will help me with my composition. So I want to drive the eye to the center of interest, whatever the center of interest is. So I will try to bring some interest to this area. Let's prepare a little bit of cerulean blue, not too much. And let's start painting. So I'm still wetting my paper like that, with a little bit of color. And now water, just pure water. You know how important the edges are to me, so I turn the paper instead of turning my hand and brush. I'm taking, sorry, advantage of the gravity. And as you see, I mix my colors on the paper and not on the palette. I'll try to keep this as light as possible, not too much color, just enough to suggest the sky. Even like that, I rinse my paper and I use, only water to make it travel to this side. And this way I'm creating, I'll take some cerulean blue once again, not mixing with the phthalo blue red shade. Water, once again, see, it's pure water. So this is more than enough color that I can use, which means I'm trying to use as little color as possible. And what is really important is that you keep your work transparent. So this is the sky. I'm removing the excess water and I will drag the color down here. Although this is not really important, but I do it just to mix with the, let's say, background area, removing the excess water once again, and the sky is done. I don't need to do anything else in the sky. Maybe I see now that there is a small area here that I did not paint. Of course, all that can be changed later, but let's cover that. It's not important. All right, so let's move to the rocks. Actually, I prefer this to the one that you will receive in your PDF files because for some reason I used some more water. But I have to explain. I did this in one evening, and that was after my lesson, so I didn't have my physics science lessons, so I didn't have enough time to prepare for all that, and I had to prepare the PDF file as well. All right, so now I start painting the rock, and the rocks will be done here using 3 colors: quinacridone gold, quinacridone burnt orange, and cerulean blue. Quinacridone gold is an obvious choice because in most of my paintings I start with this color. It's a must-use color. Quinacridone burnt orange gives some more impact, and cerulean blue because I need some kind of reflections from the sky. So even if you don't expect this color to be in the rocks, it must be in the rocks because I have used it in the sky. Either that or phthalo blue red shade. Mostly dry brush strokes, darker to the left of each rock, because this way I will be suggesting, the light that comes from the right part, and this way I will be creating some texture. Okay, so let's start with this. And why not? Although quinacridone gold is one of the, as I said, must-use colors, let's put some here so that you see how I work with it. And quin burnt orange, let's put this here. They will not mix on the palette, so I don't put them very close to each other, and I have the blues here. All right, so let's start. Let's take, this is in a Skoda Reserva number 6, and I will remove some of the excess water. And now I'm creating something like that. So you see the bristles. I hope you see the bristles. I will try to paint on my collaged paper using mostly dry brush strokes, which means I do that very fast. So the color goes to certain areas and then it leaves other parts untouched. And this way, I'm creating texture. So it's not created by me, but it is created because of the collage and watercolor. And you see how beautifully the watercolor works with collage. And you see, once again, the fibers, which are not fibers, but it was created the way I showed you, they stay lighter. And the color goes to the valleys and the hills remain without color. And this way, you can create so many beautiful effects. So let's move on. Let's paint here, similar. And then just a touch of blue. Here and there, more texture created. That's it. Of course, anything could be okay. So I guess you cannot go wrong if you use minimal water. This is important. Very little water. And you keep your surfaces really transparent. This is what I always suggest in my lessons. Keep it transparent as possible in the first layers. You know, I go very, not opaque, but I go very dark in my paintings, but this is done in several steps, not in one step. So you must have patience and create, darker shapes, but you do it step by step. And once again, I will draw your attention to the fact that I take one color at a time and I let the colors do their thing on the paper. And I'm trying to expose the fiber. So once I see a fiber, I may paint around it, which means that this way, the fiber will be even more evident and you will have more interesting results in your painting. So the rocks are starting to develop. In many cases, let me show you that there is no fiber here. There is no collage here, just some glue, but no collage. I can create a fiber here. But this is done only by painting. So imagine doing this, and then let's create the fiber.
George, there's a question from Tom on Facebook. He asked, are you at all concerned about the acidity of your applied collage materials?
That's a good question, but it doesn't do me any, it doesn't give me any problem because it is sealed under the acrylic medium. So it cannot create any problem at all.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a good question, though. Okay, so this is not a real fiber here, but it is still like a fiber. You see, two pieces of white, area like a fiber that is collaged here, but it's not a real one. And sometimes they are even more beautiful than the real ones. And I do a lot of that stuff as well. This is what I call in my workshops, you know it, the fake collage technique. So it is like imitating collage, but without collage. Okay, let's go a little bit faster. It doesn't have to be something, you know, very exact. I'm just playing with colors. I'm just following the idea that I have to create something darker to the left. The edges are important. So even here you see that the left part is somehow more accurate because I want the rocks to be distinguished, easily viewed as separate areas. And this is also what you know that I call the chessboard effect. So I'm trying to create dark passages or darker passages next to lighter ones, and I want to plan ahead. So when I go here, I say, okay, this area is gonna be lighter. I go somehow darker here. Why? Because I want to create a visible light area in that direction. And of course, you could use any other colors. Any color would be okay. Now, the most important area for me will definitely be the rocks that face the light. And these are going to be the busier, let's say, in texture areas. On the other hand, as I go closer to the other side, to that side, and to the edges, I will try to use less detail, and there are two good reasons for that. One is the... Excuse me?
I think someone needs to mute their mic.
Okay, I thought there was a question.
Nope.
So the thing is that you don't want the viewer to go to find too much detail at the edge. So you don't want to have too much detail, and I will later try to mute down these areas to darken them. I will still have interesting, let's say, hopefully, passages, but I don't want to have too much detail at that area. And the other thing is that if you have too much detail all over the place, then there are no resting areas. You don't give the option to the viewer to rest at some place of the painting, and that is rarely a good decision. So you must have some busier areas, some detailed areas, and then definitely some areas where the viewer can go and rest, and he won't find too much detail all over the place. Okay, I'm almost done with this area of the rocks. As I said, I will not paint everything. I will leave some light, but as you see, I'm trying to distinguish the shapes. So where the two rocks meet, I'm trying to suggest where one rock finishes and where the other rock starts. So in order to do that, let's say here, I will go at the top rock and paint it somehow darker. And this way, this rock comes forward. It's not going to be the lines that I use, the pencil lines, it must be shapes. We cannot rely in lines when we do things like that. It must be shapes. And that is negative painting in this case. Okay, let's add some quinacridone burnt orange here. I will stop with this area. Just playing around, creating more interest. visual interest, some more contrast, some more detail. I think I'm done with this step. Of course, this is only one step forward. I have to do more. And let's paint this rock. But before I go to this rock, because it's going to be a more distant rock, I will take 1 minute to dry this area. So give me 1 minute. I don't think I need any more than that. So if I go to the more distant rock, it must have some use of the texture, but I would prefer to paint it like a silhouette. So one of the colors that I love is Moonglow. Why? Because I have yellowish colors here, not yellow, but yellowish colors here. So I would love to use Moonglow like a complementary color and like a darker color that will push my front rocks forward. Once again, darker to the edges and lighter inwards and possibly warmer inwards, giving once again a feeling of transparency. So let's prepare some fresh Moonglow, although it's excellent to use the Moonglow in the palette, but just to see the amount that I use, you see that most of the colors that I prepared are still there. So I use very, very little color. Okay, Moonglow, starting at the edge. Definitely paying attention that I go darker, closer to the yellow areas. Why? Because that will push my rocks forward. But then as I do that, let's create some visual interest by adding quinacridone burnt orange inwards. That could easily be burnt sienna or other colors. Darker up here, maybe quinacridone gold inwards. And once again, Moonglow, because we mostly want to have a silhouette. Maybe to the right part, we can add some warmer color because the light comes from that direction, but don't forget, the idea is to paint the silhouette, not details here. But still, some details are created because of the collage. Another advantage of painting with watercolor on top of collage is that if you want to lift color, it's a piece of cake. Because watercolor on top of collage, well, it can be lifted, very, very easily. And now you see that closer to the edges, I'm going a little bit bolder. And as I go inwards, I prefer to use lighter colors, or maybe even no color at all. So water. I'm using the water already on my palette. So, the amount of color that you use and how dark you want to go, and you can evaluate again and again so many times. But what matters for the moment is that you keep it transparent, you don't lose the transparency at this point, and it's always easy to add it's not so easy to remove, although on top of collage, even that is easy. Okay, some more up here, because I want this area to stand, you know, like a silhouette up there, and then maybe warmer, as I said, inwards. I don't have to paint any kind of detail. The detail is painted by itself as we have the textures. And you can see how many textural elements are created because of the collaged paper. Okay, I leave it like that. I don't need to do anything else here. Let's move to the next area or to the next thing. And the next thing is to paint the background mountains. And you know, as this is still wet, a good idea is to again take one small moment to dry this. Otherwise, the color could diffuse. Is that a problem? No, it is not a problem. I mean, I could do it like that without an issue, but it's better to go safer just to avoid any potential problems. So one moment to dry this.
For those of you wanting to get in contact with George, I put his website contact in the chat. I will put it in Facebook as well. George, you're going to get so many messages.
I'd love to see messages. Send me messages, and I will definitely answer to everybody. Send me a message so that I send you the PDF file as well in person. So let's go to the background hills, the background mountains actually, and they are painted with Moonglow and cerulean blue. Very light, as you see, darker at the edges so that I have a clear edge suggesting where the mountains start and finish, but lighter as I go downwards. And it doesn't matter if I use actually Moonglow or no, Moonglow, it's a must-use color actually, but if I use cerulean blue or phthalo blue red shade. So let's pick phthalo blue. It doesn't matter. Now, as I go lower, I will use water, just water, because the message is given. I don't need to add any more color. I only drag the color downwards. It's more than enough. This is how transparent I want it to be. I don't need anything more than that. And let's go here. Now here it's a little bit more tricky because yes, I also paint with water, as you see, in this area, but the other side, which is closer to the yellowish area, I want to provide contrast. So at that point, at that area, I'm going to add some more color and then let it diffuse and mix in the already wet area. And that way you see that this area is darker to the left, lighter to the right. Why? Chessboard effect. This is lighter, this is yellowish, I need bluish and somehow darker color here. But when we speak about darker, it's not going to be dark. It's still so transparent. But it provides enough contrast so that I see how these yellowish front rocks come forward. I think that I'm speaking too much and time passes. So when this is dry, and of course this is dry so I can paint, we paint I have to paint the more distant rock. Let's keep this for the moment so that I don't go to dry again. I do it later. Let's move to the next area, and I darken parts of the foreground rocks, suggesting shadows and light and texture. So mostly dry brush strokes again, paying attention to the edges, and notice that the darker shapes at left have less detail. So I'm trying to mute this area as much as possible. Okay, let's make sure that I have not too much water. And I start, let's focus to one of the rocks, like this one. This one. I want to paint this area darker so that this goes lighter. Fast strokes like that, not too much. No, I don't paint like back and forth. Let's add some interest with quinacridone burnt orange. Let's paint around one of these fibers to make it more evident. And now water, just water, plain water, and this is done. I mean, I like this rock. I don't think I need to do too much here. Maybe suggest that we are dealing with something very high, and I give some kind of inclination through this line. Done. And you see how this stands darker against this area. Let's repeat. Let's start at the left. Done. Maybe add some more interest by adding quinacridone gold. Of course, I could use other colors and make my life easier, like Piemontite genuine. Now I see two beautiful fibers here, 1, 2. So I will paint in between. And why am I doing that? Because this way I'm exposing these two fibers. And look how beautiful effect this is, to expose the fibers. It's not real fibers, I repeat once again, it's just collaged tissue paper, kitchen paper, as simple as that, nothing else. Now, the newspaper, I'm painting around the newspaper, and I'm painting around other fibers. So the trick is to expose the fibers, make them more evident one way or another. But look at the fact that you can still read letters in the newspaper. I love to let some of this show through, and you will see several of my paintings with letters showing through, but only very few of them. So most of it, it's not going to be visible. Let's move on, paint here, and so on. But when I go closer to the edges, like here, I will go bolder. So I'm not trying to paint too much detail here. I'm creating an area that is overall darker. I'm going to use Moonglow from the palette now. So I'm trying to create a darker passage all over the place because I do not need too much detail here. Remember, we want the eye to be able to rest in some areas. That doesn't mean that it's gonna be a dark or gray color. I still try to have visual interest by adding quinacridone gold, burnt orange, quinacridone burnt orange, and so on, but of course Moonglow as well. But it's gonna be, you know, more muted in this area. Okay, let's try to finish with this idea of the rocks here. Some light in this area. And you will see that the more color you add, the more interesting texture you will be able to see. Just remember to do it in steps.
Just a quick time check. You have 10 minutes. Doing great.
Okay. It's almost impossible to finish this, but maybe I will. In let's say to some extent it will be finished. Okay, but thank you for reminding me.
We believe in you, George.
Don't believe too much in me. Never a good idea to do that. Okay, so more light and more light like that. And it's important to distinguish the shape. So I'm always focusing at these areas where the two rocks meet and I try to create more, you know, contrast so that all these rocks are distinguished. Okay, let's not play too much with it. Let's move to maybe we can finish like that. And of course, I will add some more details and post. So I will paint the tree using the same colors. Once again, Moonglow, Quinacridone, Burnt Orange. And when we go to the greens, I will use two colors like green apatite and let's say Quinacridone Gold. Oh, that was a lot. I can use that now. Not really.
You can make a forest.
You see, now I am, you know, in fashion. I will paint my nails green. And it's getting, you know, there was so much color in this tube. Anyway, let's start with this. I have to be careful so that I don't transfer green color all over the place. I'm starting by adding some yellowy stones and then some green stones. And if I do it more like dry brush, you will even see a lot of detail coming through because of the fibers, once again. And then I will also add some darker tones, Moonglow, at the lower areas. So little water that I'm even finding, now I will add a drop of water. I find it difficult to work with my colors because the water is minimal. And let's suggest some detail towards the edges, some fake detail. It's not real detail, but it is enough to suggest that there are leaves, there are, you know, branches, there is so much action there. And maybe some greens like, I don't know, like foliage at the bottom. But that should be even darker like that, so that I create, once again, some way to separate the rock from this area. And as I had planned for some greens here, let's add some foliage here as well. I'm trying to do this much faster now, so you see that I'm using some Moonglow in this area, not because you expect Moonglow to be in the foliage, but because I needed to provide contrast. and it still looks green, although I have used colors like moon glow, and I could use other colors too, like, let's say, what if I use some Mayan dark blue? It's not a problem. Whatever color you use to create contrast, it's not a problem. And you should do it without fear, as long as the color overall is the color that you want to suggest, greenish color. It is still green, no matter if I add Mayan dark blue or if I add, let's say, what should I take? Bloodstone. Bloodstone. This is bloodstone. It's not a problem. Nobody will be seeing bloodstone here. You will still see green color here because it is mixed and it is the value that matters, not the color that matters. So let's suggest some details like that. And I still have just 5 minutes. So imagine creating some, separation with darker colors here and there. Not too much, just enough to suggest the various surfaces. I'm taking some more bloodstone desperately right now to finish something faster. And the only thing that matters now is to create some separation of the rocks like that. I sense there was a question. Somebody.
I was just gonna read a comment from Facebook. Inez said, "Brave little tree up on that height. It adds such interesting sight."
It's a brave, yeah.
A brave little tree.
Brave imagined tree, I must say. But nevertheless, yes, highness. All right, so more or less this is the idea. I should paint that distant rock as well. Now it is still wet, but as long as I add some color that is not so wet and mostly dry, I don't have a problem. A lot of pigment, not too much water, and I can suggest this more distant rock. But of course, even if it is a rock that is going to be like a silhouette, I don't want it to be very dark. I want to suggest some warmth inwards, but not so much playing around near the edges, so the edge must be dark enough to provide the contrast which is required. But when I paint that, water is enough to the other side. So what I need to create as darker is the area that is closer to the more forward, let's say, rock. Okay, many things could be done still, but I sense that we have an idea of the rocks. If I had more time to do something, I would always pay attention to the individual rocks, going from one place to another, adding more contrast, like things like that, to make them stand out, to provide more interest, and so on. Okay, so anyway, that's the main idea. I don't want to take your time any longer.
Is anybody painting along from home?
Thank you for your patience.
No, thank you. This has been wonderful. So many great comments. I don't even have time to read them all. But we would love it if you could post this for us on your socials
Of course.
so that we can see your final.
Well, yeah, sure.
And then anybody, if you guys are painting along at home, we would love to see it. So Anna, I'm looking at you.
Yeah.
There we go.
Improvised.
Oh, it's Valentina. I love it.
I forgot, of course, the monastery.
Oh
But
no, we
I-
forgot the love story.
Oh,
yeah, but who cares? I mean, you will find it in the notes, right? And I will finish it, of course, and you will see everything. Okay. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for this
thank
demo.
you, George.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
I'll be with
Thank you,
Thank you,
George.
George.
Thank you, George.
It's nice
Thank
to
you,
see you
Always love
again.
to see you.
Bye bye.
Okay, we'll
So
see you
glad
guys
you were
next
here.
week.
Wonderful
Thanks,
weekend,
George.
everyone.
See you. Thank you.